With Fed board member Myron now confirmed, the mainstream media is preparing the world for the Fed's third mandate, which is essentially yield curve control. Let's fucking go. Yield curve control to Bitcoin equals 1 million. And I agree with him. Bitcoin is going to 250K and then it's going to 1 million. They're going to have to print so much money, debase this currency so much. We are going to see so much inflation, especially in the scarce desirable goods, particularly Bitcoin. Bitcoin inflates the most. It performs the most. You guys have to understand what's happening. You have to. Interest rates are coming down not to juice the economy, not to solve for jobs. They're coming down because we as an empire are about to fail.
Bondholders are about to learn an old lesson the hard way. When governments can't pay their debts, they don't default, they inflate them away. Jack Mallers says Bitcoin is the purest signal of this liquidity game. Unlike the S&P 500, which drifts higher on passive inflows and monetary expansion, Bitcoin behaves like a pressure valve. It responds instantly to changes in liquidity. When dollars are drained, Bitcoin slumps. When liquidity returns, it surges. Mallers argues the Fed is sliding toward an undeclared third mandate, yield curve control. Instead of only managing short-term rates, the central bank would step in to cap long-term yields as well. That means both ends of the curve would be fixed. The result, negative real rates. Savers and bondholders take the hit while the government quietly reduces its debt burden through inflation. This isn't about spurring growth or creating jobs, Mallers says. It's about keeping the system alive. After World War II, the US used the same playbook, crushing bondholders and inflating away debt to GDP from 120% to 30%. With America's balance sheet now in equally dire shape, the Fed has little choice but to repeat history. That's why analysts like Arthur Hayes throw out price targets of $250,000 per Bitcoin on the way to 1 million. It's not hype, it's math. In a world where fiat is systematically debased, Bitcoin doesn't just track liquidity, it front-runs survival. If you found value in this breakdown, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with other investors who are paying attention. We're here to keep bringing you sharp analysis and voices that understand what's unfolding. Thanks for watching.
So going into the show, everyone's like, Jack, I thought Bitcoin only goes up. Bitcoin's down 2.5%, which, by the way, come on, chill out. 2.5% is nothing in the grand scheme of things. But yes, Bitcoin took a dip. And I wanted to focus on, I actually think that this dip is very healthy. I'm very excited by this dip. I think this dip is good news. And I want to explain why and just the general trend of what's happening if we zoom out. So this tweet from Arthur Hayes, TGA refill almost done. Target is 850 billion. With this liquidity drain complete, up only can resume. Let's understand what's going on here. So the TGA, that stands for the Treasury General's account. So what Arthur is saying is the Treasury General's account refill is almost done. Think of the Treasury General's account like what it sounds like. It's the it's the checking account of the US government. The US government's checking account sometimes needs to be refilled. How do they refill their checking account? How do they refill their bucket of cash? Well, they sell bonds, which is a way of borrowing money from the market. And so when the Treasury does that, what Arthur is claiming is they're draining liquidity out of the system because a lot of the capital that is in Bitcoin, that is in assets, that is floating around in the economy, then goes to finance the government by buying bonds. Does that make sense? And so every so often, the United States government needs to refill their checking account. And he ends his tweet by saying, once that's done, we can continue to go higher. What does he mean by that? He means we're going to continue to go higher because once the Treasury has their checking account full, they go and spend that money into the real economy. One of the biggest spenders in the economy is the US government itself. And that capital finds its way into Bitcoin, into real estate, into the stock market, into gold, into the economy. And so the Treasury General account is being refilled. That will suck liquidity out of the system. And I think why this excites me so much is Bitcoin continues to be the best expression of fiat liquidity, the best pulse, the best index, the best heartbeat as to how healthy the system is, where the liquidity is, all the way to the Treasury literally refilling its checking account, its money bucket. So just so you guys know, I think that there are serious liquidity issues within the market We are living in two economies, as I've been saying on this show. There is the ultra wealthy, and then there is everybody else. There are scarce, desirable asset holders, and then there is everybody else. And we'll get into that in detail later in the episode. But the everybody else continues to struggle. The Treasury is draining liquidity right now. And I think Bitcoin is reacting to that. And as a Bitcoin holder, that's what you want. You do not want Bitcoin to be like the S&P 500, to be collecting a bunch of passive flows that backs the Treasury market with its bullshit 10% up every single year. That's basically more or less reflecting the increase in M2 money supply. You want Bitcoin to be the escape valve, the exit door, the pure reflection of the devil in the mirror. Another tweet from Arthur. This is a gem. With Fed board member Myron now confirmed, the mainstream media is preparing the world for the Fed's third mandate, which is essentially yield curve control. Let's fucking go. Yield curve control to Bitcoin equals 1 million. And I agree with him. Bitcoin is going to 250K and then it's going to 1 million. They're going to have to print so much money, debase this currency so much. We are going to see so much inflation, especially in the scarce desirable goods, particularly Bitcoin. Bitcoin inflates the most. It performs the most. You guys have to understand what's happening. You have to. Interest rates are coming down not to juice the economy, not to solve for jobs. They're coming down because we as an empire are about to fail. The Fed is coming out with a third mandate that gives them some control over the long end as well. So now they set rates at the short end and the long end. That's yield curve control. That's real rates negative. That's financial repression against bondholders. Do you understand? We did this. You guys, let me go back. You see this chart here? Look at our gross federal debt as a percentage of GDP. Look, been this high before during the world wars. How did we bring debt to GDP from 120% down to 30%? Financial repression. Bondholders got smoked. Do you understand? Like, it's very obvious. We've lived through this. And the fact that Bloomberg, it also underscores how willing Trump is to upend decades of institutional norms to break down the Fed's longstanding independence and service for his own goals. That was written by a bond portfolio manager. Good game. Hey, listen, man. You can cry and pay to have articles written in Bloomberg, or you can sell your bonds and buy some Bitcoin. The choice is yours.
Jack Mallers says we are living through a fourth, turning the end of an era, the collapse of an old order. Every empire eventually reaches this point, and America is no exception. The unraveling we see today is the result of decades of decisions abandoning gold, printing limitless money, outsourcing jobs, exporting industries, even eroding the strength of families and communities. When you hollow out a nation for long enough, collapse becomes inevitable. Mallers argues the monetary system itself is cracking. Inflation, financial repression, and the looting of future generations are now the only tools left to keep the machine running. That's the real theft of purchasing power, of savings, and of opportunity. Ordinary people bear the cost while the system props itself up with promises that can never be repaid. According to Mallers, if there is a peaceful way forward, it runs through Bitcoin. Unlike fiat currency, Bitcoin is hard, neutral money that doesn't bend to political will or policy manipulation. If you care about your children, he says, you teach them to save in it. Every other path only leads further into decay, while Bitcoin offers the possibility of rebuilding on sound foundations. Let's get back to the interview.
We all have to understand what is involved in a fourth turning. What is involved in the fall of an empire? What comes with Bitcoin's success? This is all a result of choices we've made. You want a divorce from the gold standard? You want to print unlimited money? You want to export jobs? Export our health? Export our currency? Export our families? This is what you get. You burden a generation that has no chance. This is incidents of assassinations. This got pretty dark, didn't it? That's why I had this almost a gloomier attitude on this show. Our assassinations are going vertical. We're on pace to reach the highest assassinations since the mid-1800s. Since the mid-1800s, what happened then? Oh yeah, a civil war. The unhealthiest, most unstable, most depressed class of human beings is the youth. They're unemployed. They're sedated in pharmaceutical drugs. They're consuming industrial sludge as food. They're riddled with debt. before they even know who or what they want to do in their life. Their grandparents have 60 to 70% of all the wealth in this country and collect 70% of entitlements from the government. And then they're told, well, when I was your age, I had to ride on a bike. I didn't have Uber. You guys just need to grow up and get off TikTok. Fuck you. Fuck you. These kids are killing themselves or killing other people. Sorry to be that guy. Sorry to make it dark. Just the fucking truth. You know, part of why I think I was put on this planet is to help Bitcoin achieve its potential and to help people realize the good that we can do based on the choices we have an opportunity to make. I only say these things to make sure you guys understand the truth and what's happening. We are living through a level of violence that is starting to rival the last time we were in a civil war. We are living through a fourth turning. We are living through the fall of an empire, a monetary regime change. We are moving back to neutral reserve assets. The only way out is through the currency, is through inflation, is through a division in the wealth gap, is through financial repression, is through theft from the middle and lower class, is through theft from future generations. You have to get Bitcoin. You have to get your kids Bitcoin. Your kids have to understand Bitcoin and save in Bitcoin. It is, to my knowledge, the only peaceful way out. I mean, this stuff terrifies me, man.
What stands out in this moment is the sense that financial markets and society are converging on the same breaking point. Bonds once seen as safe are being hollowed out quietly through inflation, while the monetary framework that supported decades of growth is showing visible cracks. The cycle isn't new. History shows governments lean on hidden taxation through currency debasement when balance sheets become unsustainable. What feels different now is the scale. Trillions in obligations meet a global system that no longer runs on trust but on reflex, with assets like Bitcoin reacting faster than traditional gauges. The lesson for savers and investors is not just about hedging portfolios but about understanding what money itself is becoming. If old anchors like bonds and fiat are eroding, then the question is unavoidable. Will people adapt to a new form of value or cling to a system that is quietly dissolving beneath them? So stay tuned. If you're into real, data-backed takes on the financial system, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the weekly updates. Thank you for the support, and I hope you enjoy the video.